The real war is not being conducted in the trenches, amid the roar of tanks and missiles. That is just a facade. The real war is being fought in the shadows, in coded messages, false identities, and whispers of betrayal. And Russia is losing this invisible war with a historic defeat. Led by Poland, a massive counterintelligence operation, stretching from Estonia to England, Greece to Lithuania, and covering all of Europe, is systematically dismantling Russia's espionage and sabotage infrastructure. From civil servants to soldiers, Wagner members to professors, dozens of Russian agents and cells have been caught one by one over the past year. In just the last year, the list goes on, with at least 32 in Poland, a massive network spanning 5 countries centered in Greece, 3 saboteurs in the UK, and at least 4 moles in Estonia. These are not independent, random arrests. This is a hunt. This is the West's silent sweep, stretching from Poland to the UK, from the Baltic Sea to the Mediterranean. The largest, most comprehensive, and most ruthless counter-espionage operation in European history. The operation is systematically wiping out Putin's entire spy network in Europe, his shadow army. This massive cleanup operation is not focused on a single target. It is targeting every single cell of the multi-layered and cancerous structure of Russian intelligence in Europe. When we piece together the fragments disclosed to the public by international news sources and local intelligence services, we see that the hunt is focused on 3 different types of targets: moles, sabotage cells, and giant networks. The first and most dangerous profile of those being hunted is moles. These were traitors who had infiltrated the heart of the system, had access to the most sensitive information, and had the greatest potential to cause harm. The scandal that erupted in Poland on October 9, 2025, was the most shocking example of this situation. It was revealed that an employee of the Warsaw City Hall's population registry cover for Russia's illegal agents, who infiltrate Europe without any official ties. That official was a key figure who gave a face and identity to an invisible army, and has now been removed from the system, to Russia's ability to infiltrate the deepest parts of the system. The second and most potentially destructive profile is that of sabotage cells. These were time bombs lying in wait in the shadows, ready to set Europe's critical infrastructure ablaze, create chaos, and cut off aid routes to Ukraine when the order came. In August 2023, the Polish Internal Security Agency, or ABW, announced that it had dismantled a 16-person espionage and sabotage cell that was planning to derail military and humanitarian aid trains bound for Ukraine. These cells were powder kegs waiting to explode, targeting Europe's logistical and industrial hubs, and those kegs were destroyed before they could detonate. These operations also emerged as the most tangible obstacles to Putin's plans to extend the war beyond Ukraine's borders into NATO territory. Finally, the most extensive target of the operation was the massive espionage networks themselves. Through a joint operation by Greek and Lithuanian intelligence services, a massive Russian espionage network based in Athens and operating in Greece, Cyprus, Bulgaria, Montenegro, and Lithuania was dismantled. This network was active in a wide range of activities, from spreading political disinformation to gathering information about NATO bases and helping Russian oligarchs evade sanctions. This network was Russia's main operational arm in the Balkans and the Eastern Mediterranean, and that arm has now been paralyzed. This goes beyond hunting down individual spies. It means burning the entire spider's web, and the West's silent sweeper is doing just that. The fact that Russian intelligence, particularly the GRU and FSB, successors to the KGB, have suffered such a comprehensive and systematic collapse may come as a surprise to many. So how did the successors of this legendary service, portrayed in Cold War narratives as invincible, omnipresent, and masters of the shadows, become so amateurishly exposed? The answer to this question lies in 3 fundamental and interrelated factors. Russia's increasing desperation, which led to the weak link strategy, the catalytic effect of the Ukraine war, and the West's overwhelming technological superiority. First and foremost, the most fundamental reason for this collapse is the decline in the quality of Russian intelligence itself. During the Cold War, the KGB used elite agents known as illegals, who were trained for years, spoke languages, and were completely assimilated into the culture of the target country. However, training such agents requires time, money, and patience. The urgent intelligence needs created by the war in Ukraine and mounting losses pushed the GRU and FSB down a much riskier and more amateurish path. The weak link strategy. Instead of expensive and hard-to-find ethnic Russian agents, they began using elements recruited through money or blackmail, coming from different nations and easier to sacrifice. We see this reality clearly in the news published in the Ukrainian media on July 30th, 2025, about the 32 spies caught in Poland, and even a Colombian. These recruited agents were generally less educated, more careless, and therefore much easier targets for Western counterintelligence services. By prioritizing quantity over quality, Russia weakened its own intelligence network with its own hands. This amateurism inevitably accelerated their downfall. The second and most important catalyst was the war in Ukraine that began on February 24, 2022. This war changed Europe's perception of security overnight. The cautious dialogue policy that had existed towards Russia until then gave way to total alertness. For all security and intelligence services in Europe, the gloves were off against Russia. Suspicious activities that may have been overlooked until then to avoid a diplomatic crisis were now considered the top national security threat. Intelligence sharing between countries reached an unprecedented level. MI5 from the UK, ABW from Poland, BND from Germany, DGSE from France, and all other services formed a single united front against Russia's shadow army. Now, a suspect identified in Poland could be instantly linked to a cell in the UK, and a phone call intercepted in Greece could expose an agent in Lithuania. The war in Ukraine suddenly thrust Russia's intelligence activities in Europe into the spotlight, making the hunt easier. Finally, the invisible force behind the success of this hunt is the West's overwhelming technological superiority. Modern espionage is no longer just about secret meetings at train stations. It is also a signal and cyber war. The capabilities of Western intelligence agencies, particularly the Five Eyes Alliance, in signals intelligence, or SIGINT, and cyber surveillance, provided a tremendous advantage in cracking the encrypted communication channels used by Russian agents, tracking their movements through digital traces, and deciphering connections between networks. A telegram message sent between Russian agents, a credit card they used, a fake social media profile. All of these were digital breadcrumbs that made it possible to hunt them down one by one. While the GRU and FSB operated with a 20th century mindset, the West hunted them down with 21st century technology. This technological asymmetry made defeat on the ground inevitable. These spy networks dismantled across Europe are not just a few headline-grabbing arrests. They represent a series of crippling blows to Russia's strategic decision-making mechanisms, military planning, and operational capacity in Europe. Every spy caught represents another eye of Russia's being gouged out in Europe, another ear being deafened. The picture emerging from this operation is one of complete strategic blindness for the Kremlin. The first and most urgent consequence of this strategic blindness is the near-total elimination of Russia's capacity to monitor NATO's military activities. Poland and the Baltic states in particular are the main logistical hubs for military aid to Ukraine and the regions where NATO's most important military buildup on its eastern flank is taking place. One of the most fundamental tasks of Russia's GRU was to monitor troop movements, new equipment arrivals, and exercises in these regions in real time. A 16-person spy cell caught photographing railway lines and military bases in Poland was doing exactly that. With the dismantling of this cell, Russia can no longer see NATO's military buildup in Poland and the Baltic states. Its ability to learn what weapons were going to Ukraine, when, and by what route has been severely damaged. This is like fighting in a fog. You don't know where the enemy is, what they are doing, or what their next move will be. The second devastating wave effect is the destruction of Russia's sabotage and hybrid warfare capabilities. Putin's plan was not only to fight on the front lines, but also to disrupt Europe's internal front, damage critical infrastructure, and create political chaos. Saboteurs preparing to burn a Ukraine-linked facility in the UK, or Wagner-linked agents planning to derail trains in Poland, were pawns in this plan. With the destruction of these cells, Russia can no longer easily sabotage arms shipments to Ukraine. Any attacks it planned against Europe's energy transmission lines, ports, or communications infrastructure are at risk of being uncovered while still in the planning stages. This is the most devastating blow to Putin's strategy of spreading the war to NATO territory and breaking the West's resistance from within. Thirdly, these operations have crippled Russia's ability to gather political intelligence and conduct influence operations. The network, run from Greece and spread across 5 Balkan countries, was working not only to steal military secrets, but also to steal political secrets, interfere in elections, and create rifts within the European Union and NATO. A professor arrested in Estonia used the academic world as a cover to establish close relationships with decision-makers and provide political analysis to the Kremlin. With the dismantling of these networks, Russia has largely lost its power to influence political decisions in Europe from within and change the direction of discussions in Brussels or other capitals. Furthermore, with the capture of the population officer in Poland, they are now unable to provide their agents with secure identities and escape routes. This is not only an operational failure, but also the complete collapse of Russia's soft power and influence in Europe. The secret behind such a systematic and continent-wide defeat of the Russian intelligence network lies not in the success of a single country, but in an unprecedented international cooperation. This is the victory of dozens of intelligence services, speaking different languages and having different priorities, acting as one mind and one fist against a single common enemy. To understand the genius of this operation, one need only look at how the Greece-based espionage network was dismantled, as revealed by the Ikathimerini newspaper. It all began when the Greek National Intelligence Service, or EYP, began tracking 2 individuals engaged in suspicious activities in Athens. However, as the investigation deepened, it became clear that these individuals had contacts not only in Greece, but also in Lithuania. At that moment, the classic rules of espionage were set aside. Athens immediately contacted Vilnius. Physical surveillance in Greece was combined with technical surveillance in Lithuania. When the information gathered by the 2 countries came together like pieces of a puzzle, it became clear that they were not just dealing with 2 suspects, but with a vast network extending to Cyprus, Bulgaria, and Montenegro. An investigation that began in Greece dismantled a cell in Lithuania and uncovered an operation in Bulgaria. This is the power of the West's new intelligence alliance. Now, MI5, ABW, VSD, EYP, and all other European services are working as a common database, a common analysis center, and a common operational force against Russia. This is a collective intelligence that the Kremlin could never have foreseen and could never counter. Within this collective intelligence, one country stands out in particular for its courage and success. That country is Poland. Due to its geographical location and historical memory, Poland, which has always felt the Russian threat most deeply, has become the undisputed leader and most successful practitioner of this counterintelligence war. Over the past year, the Polish Internal Security Agency, or ABW, has dealt Russia its heaviest blow in Europe by capturing dozens of spies, including Wagner members, saboteurs, and moles who stole military secrets. Warsaw has not only protected its own national security, but has also played a vital role on behalf of the entire Western alliance by securing the aid corridor to Ukraine. Poland's relentless and uncompromising stance has set an example for other European countries and encouraged them to take bolder steps. By fighting on the front lines of this shadow war, Poland has proven itself not only a victim, but also a hunter. This is a strategic role, and Warsaw is playing it flawlessly. This is a victory not only for intelligence, but also for political will. This Europe-wide spy hunt is much more than a series of successful counterintelligence operations. It is the complete collapse of Putin's Plan B, the shadow war strategy he relied on to compensate for his military failure in Ukraine, and the destruction of one of Russia's greatest myths of power. This is a strategic checkmate. Russia is now the losing side, even in the shadows. Putin's grand plan had 2 phases. Plan A was to militarily occupy Ukraine within a few days or weeks and install a puppet regime in Kiev. This plan failed miserably, thanks to the unwavering resistance of the Ukrainian people. That's when Putin activated Plan B. If he couldn't defeat Ukraine on the battlefield, he would bring the war to the heart of Europe, destabilize the West from within, sabotage support for Ukraine, and undermine the Western alliance from within. The soldiers of this plan were not tanks, but spies. Its weapons were not missiles, but disinformation, sabotage, and political assassinations. Saboteurs targeting railways in Poland, arsonists in England, disinformation networks spreading across Europe. All of these were parts of this Plan B. The West's silent sweep operation has completely destroyed Putin's last hope, this shadow war plan. There is no longer any chance to destabilize Europe from within, break the West's will, and end the war on his own terms. This is not just an operational defeat, but a strategic bankruptcy. The biggest ripple effect of this bankruptcy is psychological. For years, since the Cold War, the KGB and its successors, the GRU and FSB, have been presented as invincible, all-knowing, omnipresent legends. This was a vehicle for projecting power as important as, if not more important than, Russia's military might. This myth instilled fear in the hearts of its enemies and made its own citizens feel the power and control of the state. Today, images of amateurish, careless, and helpless Russian agents being caught one by one in Europe are shattering this myth before the eyes of millions. The end of the legend has come. The once feared GRU now appears to be a third-rate organization, needing a civil servant for fake IDs and using recruited criminals for sabotage. This psychological blow is the collapse of one of Russia's greatest power myths, and has an impact at least as devastating as losing a tank brigade on the front lines. Neither do their enemies fear them as they once did, nor do potential dissidents within the state fear the power of the state as they once did. This is not only the operational collapse of an institution, but also its spiritual collapse. Ultimately, the dozens of spies caught in Europe over the past year are not just the tip of the iceberg. It is the iceberg itself that has been completely melted by the heat of the West's combined intelligence power. The West's silent broom has wiped Putin's shadow army in Europe, his sabotage cells, his moles, and his disinformation networks off the map. Putin wanted to plant thousands of invisible daggers in the heart of Europe, but he found an impenetrable armor, woven with technology, willpower, and perfect coordination. His agents were hunted down, his networks dismantled, his secrets exposed. Russia is now blind, deaf, and alone in Europe, waiting for its next move while waiting to be hunted down itself, because the cleanup is complete. So, what do you think about this? Please share your thoughts in the comments. To stay updated on new videos, please subscribe to our channel and don't forget to turn on notifications. Thank you for watching.